What did God allow Moses to do instead of entering the promised land? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Deuteronomy on Walking Through the Bible.
The glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Deuteronomy chapter 3. We're going to be reading from verses 23 to 29. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So Deuteronomy chapter 3, beginning at verse 23. Then I pleaded with the Lord at that time, saying, O Lord God, you have begun to show your servant your greatness and your mighty hand. For what God is there in heaven or on earth who can do anything like your works and your mighty deeds? I pray, let me cross over and see the good land beyond the Jordan, those pleasant mountains and Lebanon. But the Lord was angry with me on your account and would not listen to me. So the Lord said to me, Enough of that. Speak no more to me of this matter. Go up on the top of Mount Pisgah and lift your eyes towards the west, the north, the south, and the east. Behold it with your eyes, for you shall not cross over this Jordan. But command Joshua and encourage him and strengthen him, for he shall go over before this people, and he shall cause them to inherit the land which you will see. So we stayed in the valley opposite Beth Peor. Moses is continuing the historical prologue to this book. We started at Sinai, had Israel go to Kadesh, where they rebelled against God and didn't take the promised land. This was followed by 40 years of wilderness wandering. We noted that the actual period of wilderness wandering was 38 years, with the 2 years from Egypt to Kadesh being included to get us to 40 years. Why is this an acceptable way of thinking about things and not a contradiction? Because Israel was wandering in the wilderness for those 2 years from Egypt to Kadesh. It's just the first 2 years were not punishment from God for disobedience, while the last 38 years were. With 38 years of wandering over, Israel went around Edom and Moab to come to the land of the Amorites, which is north of the Arnon River, Moab's northern border, as seen on our map. They defeated Sihon, king of Heshbon, and Og, king of Bashan, to capture territory on the east side of the Jordan River. This land would be given to the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. Coming out of verse 23, we have Moses' conversation with God about him entering the promised land. In Numbers chapter 20, verses 1 to 12, we have the reason that Moses wasn't allowed to enter the promised land despite leading them to its borders. Numbers 20, beginning at verse 1. Then the children of Israel, the whole congregation, came to the wilderness of Zin in the first month, and the people stayed in Kadesh. And Miriam died there and was buried there. Now there was no water for the congregation, so they gathered together against Moses and Aaron. And the people contended with Moses and spoke, saying, If only we had died when our brethren died before the Lord. Why have you brought up the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness, that we and our animals should die here? And why have you made us come up out of Egypt to bring us to this evil place? It is not a place of grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, nor is there any water to drink. So Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and they fell on their faces. And the glory of the Lord appeared to them. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Take the rod, you and your brother Aaron, gather the congregation together. Speak to the rock before their eyes, and it will yield its water. Thus you shall bring water for them out of the rock, and give them drink to the congregation and their animals. So Moses took the rod from before the Lord as he commanded him. Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock, and he said to them, Hear now, you rebels, must we bring water for you out of this rock? Then Moses lifted his hand and struck the rock twice with his rod, and water came out abundantly, and the congregation and their animals drank. Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, Because you did not believe me to hallow me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. To us, striking the rock instead of speaking to it might seem minor, but notice Moses' attitude while doing so. He told Israel in his complaint that he would have to give the people water from the rock. In other words, he ascribed to himself what God was doing. And by striking the rock instead of speaking to it, some might be able to say that there was a spring behind the rock that Moses simply let loose. Moses spoke to the rock, though, it would have had to have been a miracle from God if water came out. Hence, God would have been hallowed before the people. Because Moses didn't do so, then like his brother Aaron, he was being punished by not being allowed to enter the promised land. When we studied Numbers 27, verses 12 to 22, we got the account of Moses being told by God that he would be allowed to see the promised land, but not enter it. Instead, he would anoint Joshua, the son of Nun, to lead the people in. What we didn't get in Numbers 27 is Moses' plea with God to change his mind. Why might Moses think that God would change his mind? Because Moses interceded for Israel on numerous occasions, and God relented from the thing that he said he would do. But this was different. In those prior cases, Moses was interceding for the people whom it could be argued had been ignorant of God's law and had only just began to serve God. With Moses should have known better. He had spoken directly with God, and so no excuse could be made for him. Add to that, if the leader of Israel wouldn't hallow God before the people, how likely is it that the people would do so? No, God had to follow through on his promise, but he did allow Moses to see the promised land, but not enter it. All of this segues nicely into chapter 4, where Moses reminds the people of the importance of obedience. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 1 to 6, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.